I begged my parents to buy me a guitar, but I was also a very rebellious youngster, and so they bought me that guitar and I used it as an ashtray. So I always thought that was very strange, and somehow my sister picked up that guitar and learned it, and when she learned it, I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. And I was very young and it didn't mean very much to me, but I always wrote poetry. And I realized that to learn to play the guitar would be instrumental in me putting music to my poetry.
Give me another shot of tequila. You know it's going down real fast. I need more quarters for the jukebox. I've gotta make this feeling last. Another double shot of tequila. The kind that goes on.
Occasionally I'll put on the radio and just to grab a line or a word, and I'll hear it and I'll structure a song around it. But I'd say most of the material that I do write comes from somewhere inside, and they come easy. I mean, they really do. I think when you are a songwriter, you can't labor over it. It doesn't evolve that way. It just, it just becomes this, I've pulled over on the side of the highway to write a whole song out because it had to be done. I knew I wouldn't remember it, never have a tape recorder with me. And I think that is very important, is that when that muse is there, you grab it. When I write a song, I think the last thing I think about is where it's going to go. The lyric is very important to me because I am a writer. And then I'll bring the music onto it. But I love working organically, and I love working with musicians that I can I want everyone to create their own landscape. And a musician is an artist, and I love them to add whatever they feel when they listen to my song, which gives me a very good insight into what that's going to create when I bring that song into an audience.
Hide a while behind your smile, and where I look, your eyes I find. For me to love you now would be the sweetest thing, would make me sing. How about this? We'll try and catch the rhythm.
Seeing other musicians, the guys from the New Riders, seeing them take a song and just take it all the way through. Hot Tuna, very complex old blues, just taking it in their own style and taking it from that beginning to the finished product after it's been recorded. And seeing what actually goes into that has really, really inspired me and helped me to understand that. I love the recording studio as a result, and I could sit there and just listen to an engineer mix an album for days, for weeks, and I have. Somewhere around 1975, I met Les Capel, and by 1979 we became a couple, and by 1980 I was running Relix magazine so that Les could launch Relix Records and basically get the music that Relix magazine was writing about out orally so that people could hear it as opposed to just read about it. And we signed Hot Tuna to Relix Records. They were the second artist to come onto the label. Robert Hunter was the Grateful Dead's lyricist, and he was the person who told us to start the label. He needed to get some product out, and he said, it's a natural for you, go with it. And it was definitely our next progression. And I've been very lucky. I've gotten to produce a lot of great artists. Merle Saunders, David LaFlame, and It's a Beautiful Day. They were the people who did Whitebird, David LaFlame's Whitebird, which was one of my favorite songs as a kid. And then to be able to produce him was amazing for me. So I've just had a very lucky little career here. The first band I ever performed with professionally was a band called Illuminati. And it was a bass player, Joe Gallant, put an 18-piece jazz orchestra together and recorded the Grateful Dead's Blues for Allah. Very, very strange project, but an amazing project. That gave me such an amazing ear, and he really opened up my horizons additionally beyond what the Grateful Dead had done up till then. And that was really fun. That was probably about 1994 or so. I definitely consider what I do jam music. I'm part of the jam band scene. I helped create the jam band scene. And I'm not a jamming person. I don't play the guitar well enough to be one of those jamming people. But I am proud to say I surround myself with amazing musicians. I love the jam, but the problem I have is that I get lost in the jam and I forget to sing. I don't know what I'm doing because I could be in the audience at that moment. I'm listening to what's around me because as much of being a musician that I am, I'm a fan first. Some of my signature songs generally tend to be the titles of the albums that I put out. I always do Dare to Dream. That's a very interesting song for me because it's got some strange bass parts, and again, those were things that were given to me by musicians that I've worked with live over the years. So that song has evolved more in the live environment than it did in the recording environment. My latest album, Rabbit Hole Soul, the title song to that album, I Will Always Do. It's very much a part of my life, and it's actually very Disney inspired, Song of the South and Alice in Wonderland specifically, and I love playing it.
One step forward and 3 steps back. I hear my train rolling down the track. Left behind, I can see the dust. Sit back down again to gather rust. Another step forward, I feel the dance. Wonder if I have another chance. Kick my shoes off, gonna rest my feet. Stop and smell the roses, 'cause I know they're sweet. Fell right down into a rabbit hole. Settle down, rest my soul. Life is a bit too fast. I found myself a home at last. Hammock up between 2 trees. Won't lose my spirit to the birds and bees. Close my eyes tight when they buzz my head. Not going out, I'm staying home instead. Fell right down into a rabbit hole. Time to settle down, rest my soul. Life is moving a bit too fast. I found myself a home at last.
Singer-songwriters are probably the true basis of music. They're the people out there really creating the lyrics.
Please welcome to the stage, Toni Brown.
It's a very isolating experience. So it's very difficult to just sit in your room and create and write, and it's very lonely.
Shadows of my mind.
But I think that people who really do have the muse needs to follow it. It's very important that if you have a song in your heart, that you put it out there, and it'll evolve.